If you've railfanned Amtrak at all in the last decade, especially the long-distance trains, then no doubt you've seen baggage cars wearing the Phase III paint. No, these aren't decades-old cars that somehow avoided the paint shop. In fact, these are some of the newest cars on Amtrak's roster, being built between 2013 and 2016. Not only that, but the Eastern long-distance trains also feature brand new sleeper and dining cars in Phase III paint, a sometimes jarring contrast with the Phase VI Viewliner 1s and Amfleets. What was Phase III doing on these brand new cars built during the 2010s? And why do they say Amtrak America? Well, that's what I'm here to discuss. The story on these cars actually begins all the way back in 2010. In July of that year, Amtrak placed an order for 130 new Viewliner cars dubbed Viewliner 2 with CAF Industries, or CAF as it's usually called. They're a Spanish-based public transit builder trying to make a name for themselves in the American market. This was CAF's first and, well, last venture with Amtrak. While I can't find any articles online confirming this anymore, I remember the original timeline called for the first cars to start delivery in 2012, with the last cars entering revenue service in 2014. Well, 2012 came and went, and there were no signs of these cars at all. Finally though, in October 2013, Amtrak released a video on their YouTube channel titled Amtrak's New Long Distance Cars. In the first second of the video, you can see then Amtrak CEO Joseph Boardman with one of the new cars in the background, and we can immediately see that these cars are not in the traditional Amtrak Phase 6 that had been applied to almost all non-state ran Amtrak cars at this point. Instead, we see the Phase III Amtrak paint scheme, something that hadn't been used since the 1990s. In addition to this, at the end of one of the cars, you can also see the pointless arrow with the name Amtrak America next to it. Towards the end of the video, Joseph Boardman states this:
Amtrak has an investment being made in long-distance trains. Amtrak America. We connect across this country for the future of its employees and for the future of those that want to ride Amtrak.
It's pretty obvious at this point what's going on. Amtrak was planning to rebrand much of the long-distance Amtrak trains with Phase 3 and with the new title of Amtrak America. Amtrak also released a now-deleted blog post which said the following: "With the launch of our new single-level long-distance equipment, the Viewliner 2, Amtrak is also launching Amtrak America, a brand that will encompass all that is great about Amtrak's long-haul trains, including those with sleeper class service. Amtrak's route brands will continue, and this brand will make the conversation and overall service offerings clear to our customers and stakeholders. Amtrak America will utilize our Phase 3 striping on the single-level long-distance cars as a tribute to our heritage. The first cars released from production will also carry Amtrak's heritage logo in honor of our past. Amtrak's current logo will return on the standard production cars." This move was pretty similar to what they would ultimately do with the regional-based Amtraks around Chicago and surrounding areas, being called Amtrak Midwest. This move back to Phase 3 was certainly welcomed with open arms by most of the Amtrak community, though of course there were some naysayers. At the end of the video, you can see the new timeline for the Viewliner 2 cars, which were expected to be finished by late 2015. By May 2014, the first new Viewliner 2 baggage car, 61,000, finally left the plant at Elmira, New York, and we finally got a chance to see this new Phase 3 variation out in the open. As seen in the Amtrak promotional video, there was a pointless arrow at one end of the car with Amtrak America written next to it. And in the middle, you had the traditional Helvetica Amtrak lettering with smaller America letters underneath it. The future of Amtrak's long-distance trains had arrived. Later on in July, the new versions of the other cars, the diner, bag dorm, and sleeper cars, would also be delivered and begin testing on the Northeast Corridor. Later on, these cars would be sent back to Elmira for adjustments. A couple months later, in September 2014, 61,000 was re-released from Elmira along with 61,001, as seen in this video taken by GG Photography. However, a major change was noted with this delivery. The pointless arrow at the end of the car was gone, the baggage car labeling was made smaller, and the Helvetica Amtrak logo in the middle was replaced with a newer Amtrak logo, but still bearing the name Amtrak America. As stated in the blog post, The original plan was to have the pointless arrow on the first few cars, and then the travel mark logo on the rest, but for whatever reason, they decided to remove the arrow from the first car altogether. The other cars that had the pointless arrow applied to them kept them for longer, but by 2016 or 2017, they also ended up losing those and getting the newer Amtrak America logo instead. Anyways, back to 2014. By the end of the year, deliveries officially took off with 20 new baggage cars being delivered before the start of 2015, and continuing into the following year. However, throughout 2015, no older cars had yet been retrofitted with the new Amtrak America scheme, which was a bit odd considering that this was the future of the Eastern long-distance trains. However, that changed in February 2016 when Viewliner 1 sleeper number 62043 emerged from the Beech Grove shops in fresh Phase 3 with Amtrak America lettering and now bearing the name New River. This was part of a plan to have all the Viewliner sleepers, both 1 and 2, to have the names of rivers in the states that Amtrak operates in. With 62043 now repainted, this seemed to be a pretty clear indication that Amtrak was ready to make the transition over to the Amtrak America branding. A month later, 62002 was the next one to come out of Beech Grove in fresh striping and was supposed to bear the name Appomattox River. However, as I had discovered on the MH Tower camera at the time, it was instead in fresh Phase 6 with no river name at all. All of us were confused, as around this same time, the original Viewliner Diner prototype number 8400 had also come out of Beech Grove with the Amtrak America branding. So we continued to wait and see if more cars would eventually come out in Phase 3, but alas, nothing more was repainted. By the end of 2016, Viewliner 1s in fresh Phase 6 could be seen alongside 8400, which was already starting to look a bit tired less than a year after its repaint. As discussed in the Amtrak Unlimited forums, it seems the decision to revert to Phase 3 for the long-distance fleet actually came from someone within Amtrak, and wasn't Joseph Boardman's idea as was originally thought. It's unclear who was the brainchild behind the Amtrak America brand, but Joseph Boardman had basically gone along with it. By September 2016, ex-Norfolk Southern CEO Wick Moorman became Amtrak's new CEO, and he seemingly expressed no interest in transitioning over to the Amtrak America brand for long-distance trains, so the project was ultimately scrapped. Nonetheless, the brand new Viewliner 2 cars would continue to receive Amtrak America paint, making the Eastern long-distance trains appear very fractured with the mix of Phase 3 and Phase 6, along with the Phase 5 engines. The last Viewliner 2 delivery, sleepers number 62523 and 62524, were picked up by Amtrak Heritage Engines 100 and 108, finally making the journey from Elmira back to New York City on August 24th, 2021. Wait a minute. August 24th, 2021? Weren't these cars ordered back in 2010? Weren't these supposed to be finished by 2015 originally? How the heck did this order get delayed by 6 years? These cars got delayed by so long that the cars were ordered before Amtrak's 40th anniversary, and the last 2 cars were delivered by 2 of Amtrak's 50th anniversary engines. How in the fuck? Well, there was a lot of issues at CAF that I don't have time to delve too much into, but essentially, labor shortages and too many modifications needing to be made were main culprits of the delay. Needless to say, I don't believe Amtrak will ever deal with CAF ever again, and from now on, Amtrak will be dealing with reputable builders who deliver fast, reliable products in a quick and efficient time span so that old equipment can be retired without having to extend far beyond what they were intended for. Anyways, tangent aside, as the Viewliner 2 cars were finished, Amtrak had revealed plans to create entirely new paint schemes as part of the brand new ALC-42 locomotives that started deliveries in June of 2021, 2 months before the last Viewliner 2s were delivered. The first of these locomotives were delivered in a transitional Phase 6 livery, which this name never really made sense to me, as this scheme looks nothing like the Phase 6 that you see on the passenger cars. If anything, it's more like Phase 6.9, but not because of the number 69, you weirdos. It's because it's more similar to the Phase 7 scheme, which is now the current scheme of Amtrak, which officially made its debut in April 2022 on locomotive number 309. So now, the question arises, what will happen with the cars that received the Amtrak America paint scheme? Presently, most of them are still in service, with some being stored at Beech Grove due to wreck damage. However, starting in August of 2025, Amtrak has begun to repaint the Viewliner 2s into Phase 7. As of the making of this video, 3 diners and 1 sleeper have received the new scheme, and eventually the rest of them will follow suit. 62043 is still roaming around, although its Phase 3 is looking pretty faded these days. As for 8400, it has been stored at Beech Grove since 2019, as it essentially was replaced by the Viewliner 2 diner cars. It only served a few years in its Phase 3 livery, with the last year or so being used as an axle count car on the Saluki and Illini trains. Amtrak America is certainly an oddball in the Amtrak ecosystem. It's a glimpse into an attempt to rebrand the long-distance trains into something new that ultimately was never fully realized. While I know there are Amtrak fans out there that would have loved to seen a full return to the Phase 3 scheme, I do think Amtrak is making the right decision in transitioning over to the new Phase 7 scheme. Amtrak has already done great work in getting the fleet transitioned over, with most major car types already having the new scheme on at least 1 or 2 cars, aside from Horizons, which we're not going to talk about those, and the Superliners. Eventually, the Amtrak America cars will get Phase 7, and this scheme will likely go extinct. Save for maybe the 8400, which will likely remain in the Amtrak America scheme at Beech Grove for several years to come. So best to get your shots at the Amtrak America cars now, because in another 5 years, you likely won't be able to.